I wrongly let things get out of hand with my childhood female friend while I'm doing long distance with my wife due to her job, and she recently told me we obviously have feelings for each other and that I should leave my wife for her. Posted by you/thrower_bad husband. My wife and I are long distance. She works abroad. I take care of our sons, 4 and 3, and do odd jobs. Originally, we lived with her, but our kids ended up in a dangerous situation, and I didn't want that to happen again. Quitting her job wasn't an option in her eyes, so I moved to our home country with the kids while she stayed. She visits us a few times a year. I moved in with close family friends. It was a hard and painful decision. I had a lot of resentment over my wife prioritizing her job over our family. But I love her. I couldn't imagine not being with her. I thought about divorce, but we decided to try to work things out. The other woman was my friend when we were little kids. After my mother died, I left my hometown and moved in with my dad and didn't see that friend. But I stayed connected with some other people from that town throughout my life, and when I moved back home with the kids, I started visiting my hometown more, to see my mom's grave and visit my old neighbors. When I met my old friend again, I was excited to see her, but I'm nostalgic for everything from my childhood. It started out innocent. I was just happy to have another connection to that part of my life. Anyway, she has a son too, who is 6, and so we ended up taking our kids to the park together while we had coffee and caught up. It was innocent, and I told my wife I'd reconnected with her, and my wife was fine with it. She jokingly asked if she should be jealous, but she didn't mean it. She trusted me. So I feel so terrible. We met up a couple of times a month from then on. I don't really know when it lost its innocence. But I realized I started becoming infatuated with her. We'd hug every time we met up and before we left, and I would feel so wistful when she hugged me. She would start talking about how her ex mistreated her and her son, and I felt so protective. She started making comments like, "My son is so good with your sons, it's like they are brothers." And I talked to her about some of the stuff that bothered me about my relationship with my wife, and she sympathized. I realized that I enjoyed the attention, and I found myself entertaining fantasies that I was with her instead. I kept thinking about if I had never met my wife and had instead moved back home and reconnected with my old friend, and we'd somehow had our same kids only with each other, we both could have been happy and been spared so much pain. If I'm trying to be objective, she's a better match for me than my wife. She puts her kids first. She appreciates me for who I am. My wife does too, but I feel like me and the kids are always an afterthought for her. Even when she's home and spending time with us, she is always thinking about her job. My wife is a good person, and she does good work. But her job traumatizes her, and she was already traumatized before she started it. She started doing her job to cope with her past, but she's also re-traumatizing herself over and over. And my kids and I pay the price. I'm not trying to justify my actions. I'm just trying to explain. My childhood friend was always complimenting me on my looks, how good of a dad I am, my physical strength. It's like she appreciated the unique things about me. And I feel like my wife loved me just because I was there for her. Like she would have loved anyone who loved her, and I was just the only one who did. It wasn't always like that, but that's how it started to eventually feel with my wife being so distracted by her job all the time. I didn't really notice it until I reconnected with my friend and noticed the contrast. I should not have let things get that far, I know. But at first, it was just an occasional thought, and I just brushed it off as intrusive thoughts, telling myself, yeah, everyone has inappropriate thoughts, but what matters is your actions. But I just let it go too far. In hindsight, some of our friendly banter was really more like flirting, and it was not appropriate. That's an action, not a thought. Anyway, today was a reality check. She said she wanted to talk to me about something serious without the kids there, so I let my other friend, who I live with, babysit and met up with her. And she basically confronted me with the fact that we obviously have feelings for each other and said I should leave my wife for her. But it was like, immediately, I realized the amount of bullcrap I was feeding myself and her. I instantly felt so bad. I didn't deny having feelings, but maybe I should have. She kept insisting I think it over, and when she saw how upset I was, she said she'd let me think it over, then left. I should have told her, no, there is nothing to think over, I love my wife, and I'm not leaving her. But I didn't say anything. That in itself is weighing on me. I need to tell my wife. I know. I just don't even know where to begin. The next time she's coming home is October. I feel like this is the kind of thing to say face to face, but I don't want to wait that long. And I don't want her to come all this way to have a nice time and ruin it. I could leave the kids with my friends and go visit her. But on top of the money issues and logistical issues, even that thought makes me sick. I keep imagining her smiling and being delighted to see me, and then how devastated she's going to be when I tell her. I can't stop thinking about her face. I feel sick. I don't want to tell her at all and just never see my childhood friend again. I'm also mad at myself for letting my stupid fantasies ruin a friendship and a precious memory, but I know it would be wrong to keep seeing her and impossible to just be normal friends now, but I know honesty is the best policy. I owe it to her to be honest. I just don't know what to do. I feel so wrong and stupid. I don't want to tell my friends. I think one of them would be really angry at me for almost cheating, and the other might actually encourage me to leave my wife. I feel like I need someone to tell me what to do because I can't process it. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. Please know your childhood friend played on every issue and insecurity. Nice of you to tell her all about them so she knew exactly how to get to you, to get your attention. She made sure you felt like she was the perfect match. She purposefully went after a married man. This was absolutely calculated, and you went right along with it. She's not your perfect match. I guarantee that if you leave your wife for this viper, within a year you'll be wondering what happened to your perfect match. She's looking to break up your marriage, which makes her not a good person. You and your wife definitely have some issues to deal with, and now you've added inviting another woman into your relationship to make it even harder. Edit to add, no friend, especially not a good friend, makes the kind of comments this woman was making, especially to a married man. If she were your friend, she would have been supporting you through the difficult time in your marriage, not setting out to destroy it and insert herself in your wife's place. Ops comment on why he doesn't leave his wife. I can't let go of people that I love. Of course I would miss her presence. I do miss her presence whenever she isn't here. She's not home as much as I wish she would be, but when she is, we do all of those things. She'll always be Big Spoon even though she is smaller than me. She'll wake me up in the morning by stroking my hair. She reads to the kids or tells them stories on the couch before bedtime, and she always has 2 kids and the dog in her lap, and she looks so cute trying to balance everyone and still hold the book. She always tries to serve me food or get a nice bubble bath ready for me, which is so sweet. I can do it easily for myself, but it's just the thought that she's thinking about me and caring for me that makes me so happy. Then sometimes I try to serve her before she can serve me, and it turns into a race if she notices what I'm doing. On the other hand, if we divorced, then she would still come to visit between her assignments to spend time with the kids. It would kill me to know she was in the same hometown as me but she can't come be my Big Spoon. The way things are now, I get to look forward to seeing her again, but if we divorced, I wouldn't even have that. Op adds an edit to his post. Okay, these comments are overwhelming and I need to sleep. Tomorrow I'm going to talk to my friends about what's going on and, after being yelled at, probably, see if they'll be able to watch my kids while I visit my wife and tell her what's going on. If not, I can probably ask a few other people. If that doesn't work, then I'll just tell her over Zoom. I'm also going to text my childhood friend that I don't want to see her again and then block her. I'm not going to leave my wife. If she leaves me, I'm going to stay single. I'm not going to date my ex-friend. I will always love my wife, and I don't think it would be fair to anyone for me to date anyone else while I still love her. To stop from having to answer the same questions over and over, my wife is an aid worker. She doesn't do it for the money. She does it because she believes God called her to do it. I do gig jobs and sometimes construction. I choose to work more flexibly and spend more time with my kids. I put my wife through college. I'm not freeloading off her. I am kind of freeloading off the friend I live with, I'll admit that. But we're all happy with this arrangement. The reason I left with the kids is because we got carjacked at gunpoint. My wife changes location a lot, so living somewhere safe but still closer to her isn't really an option. It's either travel with her officially through her organization or stay put somewhere. I don't think my childhood friend originally intended to cheat with me, but I guess it doesn't matter anymore. Op adds a second edit to his post. To everyone telling me to get a stable job so my wife can come home, you misunderstand. You think my wife and I haven't spoken about this? She is never going to quit her job. She made that very clear. Her job is her priority. I promise you, she's not doing it for the money. I'm not forcing her to do it by refusing to work more. If she said she would even consider quitting if I found a more stable job, I'd do that in a heartbeat. Anyway, I talked things over with my friends. They were understanding. The plan is to fly over and see my wife sometime next week-ish, but we still have to make arrangements. I thought about contacting my wife's boss to see if we could do a surprise visit, but it seems like it would be so cruel to show up and surprise her and make her happy to see me, only to break her heart. So instead, I called my wife saying everyone is okay, but I have something bad to tell her that she should hear in person, and I'm going to fly out to see her. She said I should just tell her because otherwise she's going to worry about it the whole time. So I almost did. But then she said, no, don't tell me. I want to see you. So I didn't. Update 2 weeks later. A lot of people ask me for an update, which I will give, but I have a couple of things to say first. First, I wanted to thank everyone who commented civilly, regardless of your opinion. I especially appreciated hearing from people who had been in a similar situation or in a similar situation to another person I mentioned. I wasn't thinking very straight at the time, and I don't think I thanked everyone properly, but it was very kind of you to take the time to share your perspective. The other thing. I should have said something at the time, but a lot of people bashed my wife, and I didn't defend her as much as I should have. So I'm going to set the record straight now. First of all, people were saying she was cheating on me. But she would never, ever do that. She is honest and loyal, and a much better person than I am. Second, people were saying my wife is negligent and doesn't care about me or our kids. This is also wrong. She's very loving. Yes, she is busy with her job. But she says she thinks about us every moment. And when she is home, she spends as much time with me and the kids as she can. She does get distracted and think about things at work that stress her out, but that's because she sees things that get to her. It's not because she doesn't care about us. She's not like half the parents out there who ignore their kids because they're distracted by their phone. People were also bashing me in a way that I think was kind of over the top, but honestly, you can bash me. Just don't bash my wife. Me having problems in my relationship doesn't mean she deserves to be bashed. I actually showed the post to my best friend, and she pointed out that a lot of you were probably just being sexist. You attacked my wife and said she didn't care about me or our kids because she doesn't get to see us much. But my friend pointed out that there are a lot of jobs that mostly men do that mean they don't get to see the kids much, and no one says that they don't love their kids or need to quit. So for everyone who said my wife doesn't love our kids, would you say the same to dads who are in the military, truck drivers, or work on oil rigs? Would you say that they're all definitely cheating on their wives? Or tell their wives that they should leave them? If not, you're being sexist. And for everyone who told me to get a better job so my wife can come home, would you say that to a woman who is married to a guy who does one of those jobs? For everyone saying me and my wife shouldn't be married or have kids because she's an aid worker, do you think there shouldn't be any aid workers? Or do you think no aid worker should be allowed to get married and have kids just because of their job? You realize a lot fewer people would be aid workers if it meant they couldn't have a family, right? You don't make any sense. Anyway, I saw my wife and told her everything, and we actually had a nice visit. She was glad to see me in spite of everything. And she insisted I not tell her anything bad until after she showed me something. Which was confusing to me, but I agreed. Anyway, it was a little waterfall. And it was beautiful. She said she visited the waterfall whenever she got a chance, and it reminded her of me, and she wished she could show it to me every time. I nearly cried when she said that. I almost couldn't even tell her after that, but I already told her I was going to tell her something bad, so I had to. Anyway, we sat there for a while until she said she was ready to hear my bad news. So, as much as it killed me, I told her everything that happened. She tried to be calm and understanding, but I could tell she was hurt. I almost wished she would have yelled and slapped me. But she just thanked me for being honest. She asked what I was going to do. I said I wasn't going to stay in touch with my former friend either way, but I hoped she would forgive me and come home to us in October like she planned. She said I was already forgiven and asked me for more details about what exactly happened and my feelings, which I did my best to answer honestly. It was hard, though. I could tell she was getting more and more upset. Eventually, she just said, "Okay," and we walked back to her base without really talking at all. That night we talked more. She knows it's hard for me to live the way we do, and she just asked me again if I was sure I still wanted to be with her. I told her I knew she wasn't going to quit her job, but I talked about how one of the hardest things is that even when she comes home, her mind is on her job, and it's hard to see how sad and stressed she always is. She said she'd bring it up in therapy and try to work on being present in the moment with her family. She kept pressing me on if there was anything else she could do better besides quit her job, and I told her how I felt about how sometimes it seems like she only loves me because I love her, and I could be anyone. She cried, apologized, said it's not true, and told me as many specific things as she could think of that she loves about me. I did the same for her. She said she was glad we talked and glad I was willing to keep working on our marriage, because from the beginning, when I told her I had something bad to tell her in person, she just assumed I wanted a divorce. She said she's always worrying I'm going to leave her, but she's grateful for every day I don't. I promised her I don't plan to, and told her I worry the same thing sometimes. It was a really good conversation. The other days, I went to her job site with her for a bit and helped out with a few things. The local kids were teasing my wife about me, which was adorable. Things aren't perfect, but they're going to be okay. Also, I know a lot of people said that my wife should leave me because what I did was as bad as a physical affair. And, confusingly, a lot of people said I did nothing wrong. I think it's somewhere in between. I did something wrong, but I did stop it before it got that far. And a lot of other people say I should divorce my wife. But I'm not divorcing her. She has her flaws, but she's also one of the best people I know. All of her flaws are because she's been through things that I can't even imagine. I chose to love her in spite of the things she can't give me. I will always love her. I'm not someone who can stop loving someone. Even if we divorced, I'd think about her and wonder if she was okay every single day. I can't be in a relationship with another person even if I wanted to, because I'd never be over her. It wouldn't be fair to them. It's my wife or no one for me. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. But my friend pointed out that there are a lot of jobs that mostly men do that mean they don't get to see the kids much, And no one says that they don't love their kids and need to quit. Yes, I would. The gender is entirely immaterial. An absent parent is not a parent. They may be a relative, they may love their kids and their kids love them, but they're bungy parents. They swoop in, dump some love, and then boing. Off they go to whatever is more important. I had absent parents. Up until I was in my mid-20s, I didn't really feel any actual love for them because I hadn't formed any kind of real bond with them. I was following the format of family equals parents love through the ignorance of not knowing any different and relying on social expectations. But it wasn't parenting, it was neglect. From my mid-20s on, it was just resentment. I saw them maybe once a year, if that. They've both died now, and honestly, I felt nothing for them. I sat at my father's deathbed and felt sorry for him as a person but no grief. But this is my story. Not all of this applies to your kids, because they do have one parent, you. Your kids are at the age where their love is uncomplicated and unconditional. But in 10 years, they're going to be asking where their mom is, why she's never around, why she love bombs them when she's back, and then boing. Off she goes again to people who matter to her. They will likely resent her and all the stuff she does that's more important than them. The love bombing will feel like manipulation, not care, and the absence will be the overriding impression they have of her. This might not happen. Your kids are possibly totally different people from me, and the result may be different. But it also may not, and your wife could be heading down the path of just being a distant family member they know but don't care about much. Commenter 2. Happy you and your wife are on the right path. You realized your mistake and have made strides to repair the damage. This is all a result of a lack of communication and not taking both of your concerns and fears into consideration. If you truly want to make it work, either strengthen your communication and maximize your time together. She also has to make more of an effort to visit more than a few times a year, or one of you needs to move to reunite the family. I understand your wife's calling and convictions to help out as an aid worker, but to paraphrase a scripture, for what does it profit a man to gain the whole world, and forfeit his soul, family? Is this job so critical that she is willing to sacrifice her marriage? Is this job so important that she neglects her children, as in being an absent mother? Take a look at your children. Will they understand that mommy was doing something important, or will they just know that mommy was only around a few times a year? Is working away from her family really beneficial for you and your children? I was in a similar situation, not the emotional affair, dedicating myself so much to something that I totally neglected my wife and daughter. When I finally realized what was happening and the stress it caused my wife and daughter, I stepped away from it all at the pinnacle of my career. My marriage and family were more important than any calling ever could be. I now consider my wife and daughter my calling. If she continues to prioritize her job over family, it's not going to work. I hope this is a wake-up call for her and for you as well. I can guarantee there are similar ways at home where she can make a difference. It's not an all or nothing type of scenario. Best to you and your wife. Ops response. I used to pray that my wife would come to the realization that you came to, but I've honestly given up hope that she will. I can't control her, so I just have to accept her. Of course the kids don't understand, and it would be better for them to have their mom here. Second update 2 months 1 week later. Hi. This is sort of an update to my previous posts in this sub. You can see them on my profile. The sub won't let me link them, but it's also a lot of other stuff I want to get off my chest. I made a post here a while ago. It was about how I realized I was in an emotional affair with my old friend while my wife was working in the Philippines. That issue is resolved. My wife forgave me, I haven't spoken to my old friend at all anymore, and I'm much more careful with my other female friends. However, some of the comments I got on my last posts have still been weighing on me. And my wife is home now, and she had a lot of big news that I want to get off my chest. First, the good news is my wife is pregnant again. And I'm happy about it, in spite of everything. I know some people in my last post were asking if I was using protection to avoid bringing more kids into the world. And honestly, no, we didn't. And I didn't want to admit that for obvious reasons. I don't have any defense for that other than I'm stupid. The other major thing is that my wife probably has OCD. Basically, my wife realized she was late and probably pregnant a long time ago, but originally didn't tell me or take a pregnancy test. She said it was like there were two different people in her head, and part of her was screaming to go get things figured out, but the part of her that actually had control refused to do anything besides carry on as usual. She was too scared to take a pregnancy test and get proof that she was pregnant because she knew she wouldn't be allowed to go on her next assignment because of the Zika virus. Basically, it was a lot of screaming at herself to do something about it before she finally got the courage to tell her therapist what was going on and actually take the pregnancy test. So even though she got pregnant in July, she hasn't had any kind of care or anything yet. Also, I guess she'd been hiding a lot of things from her therapist because she knew the therapist would make her take a break if she knew exactly what was going on in her head. So she wasn't honest with the therapist about how she felt compelled to do this job, how she felt when she wasn't doing it, etc. But she knew she needed to do right by her baby, so she finally told the therapist about the pregnancy, how she was having such a hard time doing anything about it, and then everything else came out. My wife described to me a bit more about how it feels to be in her head. It's not just that she thinks God wants her to do her job. The way she said it, basically, she constantly thinks about all the bad things happening in the world, everything terrible that she's ever seen, every time she could have helped someone but didn't, even if she had a very good reason, and it makes her feel like she has to be working. She thought all these thoughts were God speaking to her, but she didn't tell the therapist that because she thought she wouldn't understand. She told me when she finally told the therapist basically asked her if she thought God was loving, and if so, why would God want her to constantly be thinking about things that made her miserable? That question finally made my wife open to accepting that she might have a mental illness rather than just God talking to her. She is home now, a couple of weeks earlier than she was supposed to come, so she can get prenatal care ASAP and a more in-depth mental health assessment. I guess her therapist thinks she has OCD but can't actually diagnose her or prescribe her medication or anything. I feel so bad for her and like I failed, too. I feel like I should have tried to dig more with her about what she was feeling. My wife was more open with me than the therapist about her thoughts, and I feel like I knew something was wrong. But I assumed she was telling the therapist everything too, and that the therapist was helping to the best of her ability. And as much as I'm happy that I hope this means things are going to be better now, I know my wife feels awful and that makes me feel awful. Basically, she was really devout and religious growing up, but after some stuff happened to her she kind of lost her faith and felt like if God existed, he didn't approve of her. I met her around then, and she was definitely in a very dark place for a while. She says that when she started having her thoughts about how she could fix the world, it was really reassuring because she thought she was finally getting her faith back. So it's been pretty crushing for her to not have that feeling anymore. I'm hoping her therapist is able to help her with that as well. My wife doesn't trust religious leaders anymore, so that makes it a lot harder for her to go through that. I believe in God, but I don't believe the same things as my wife and I'm less devout than her, so I don't always know what to say. I have told her I'm so sorry for what she's been going through, and that I'm so proud of her for finally going to her therapist for help even though it was so hard. I told her I'm glad she was open with me and I hope she knows she can rely on me for anything she needs. And I told her I'm sure God knows how hard it was for her to get help and he's proud of her too. That made her cry, I think in a good way. Anyway, she's been home a few days now, and we're just taking things one day at a time. Prenatal appointments are coming up next week, but we're still trying to figure out the OCD appointment stuff. So far, we've just been cherishing the family time as much as possible. The best news, my wife says when she's done with maternity leave, instead of going back to work, she might try to go back to school. She wants to get her master's and learn another language or two, and she says part of the reason for that is so she would have more choices in her assignments and possibly be able to work with refugees here in the US instead of traveling all over. That way, we could find somewhere to live permanently as a family. She says she's not sure yet and she wants to spend some time figuring things out. But I am hopeful for the first time in a long time that we might be able to be happy together as a family someday. I'm really just hoping everything turns out positively. I feel bad for being happy, since this is so hard on my wife, but I really hope it'll end up being a positive thing all around in the end. We've told my two closest friends, who we live with, about the new baby, but no one else yet, except Reddit strangers. My best friend is almost as excited as me. She keeps coming to me talking about gender reveal party ideas, like, randomly in the middle of talking about the election or whatever. We're keeping it from the kids for just a while longer because she's not very far along yet, and if, God forbid, the baby doesn't make it, we don't want the kids to be upset. So I keep telling her to be a little more subtle and she keeps forgetting, but luckily the kids have no idea what she's talking about when she does that. Anyway, that's my big news. Someone asked me for an update and I wanted to clear the air and get some of this stuff off my chest anyway. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. High chances that she forgave the cheating because of her OCD. Very plausible that, with so much conflict in her head, she didn't process or understand the extent of what Op did. I wouldn't be surprised if, after treatment and once she is stabilized, she decides to divorce Op. Op's response. Or maybe she forgave me because she loves me? But if she changes her mind once she gets better, I guess that's what I deserve. Commenter 2. Good for you. Stop cheating and stay committed to your wife. Communicate with her and don't give excuses for why you did what you did. She has a long battle ahead of her, and the last thing she needs to worry about is whether she can trust you to respect and stay faithful to your marriage. I hope she finds herself and goes to therapy more, for her own happiness. She deserves to have that. You're getting downvoted to hell because people are still disgusted by what you've done. Reddit is not forgiving. So be grateful that your wife is willing to forgive you, and do better. Be a better man that's worthy of her, because right now everyone knows you don't deserve her, and she could probably do way better than you. You ran when life got hard, and instead of talking to her, you jumped into the arms of your friend. You cheated, and your wife is dealing with the emotional fallout. Don't update again. You'll be downvoted more because Reddit hates cheaters. This is not the place for people who do that and expect grace. Op's response. I wasn't planning on updating again, but I will if I want to. You can't tell me what to do. I am not going to emotionally cheat again, So I don't know why you told me to stop cheating when I already have. I know I messed up, and I'm grateful she forgives me. Right now, I'm more focused on being there for her than on beating myself up. Third update 6 months later. I've posted here before about a major mistake I made while my wife was abroad working as an aid worker. I've also posted about how we recently found out she has OCD. Her form of OCD was that she thought God was constantly talking to her, telling her to do things and reminding her of all the bad things that were happening in the world. Anyway, since she found out she was pregnant, she has been getting treatment for it, and for a while, things were looking up. I don't mean to be selfish, but for a while I felt like I could have my old wife back. She really wasn't like this when we first got together. But it wasn't just for my sake, I was hoping that with treatment she'd be happier herself and also be able to be there for our kids more. However, ever since Trump took office, my wife's mental health has taken a turn for the worse. She has always been completely devastated about the situation in P at Lest. But when she was at her job was a distraction from it, and when she got home and didn't have the distraction, it was rough, but she was actively working on being able to cope. However, when Trump started cutting funding for aid programs, she found out that the organization she works for would be doing layoffs and she might not have a job to go back to. She completely lost it. Her coworkers were giving her updates from the ground, there were a lot of rumors, and for a few days she was basically just curled up in bed texting, reading the news, and panicking. I didn't know how to support her during that time. Nothing I tried to do for her made a difference. She didn't want the kids to see her in that state, so she just kept telling me to go spend time with them. She left her room only once during that time to go to therapy. But then, the day after that, she left the house without telling me to go protest by herself by walking along the main road holding a sign. Luckily, she did tell my best friend where she was going, and my best friend went with her and texted me what was up. At first, I was just glad she was feeling well enough to get out of bed. However, now she does this more days a week than not. She spends more time doing this than she spends with our kids. I've gone with her a few times, and my best friend goes with her a lot. Even if she wasn't protesting, I'd be worried about her walking on that road. People drive really fast and aren't expecting pedestrians. However, my other worry is that this is a very white and conservative area. A lot of people have guns, and my wife is not only out there protesting things that most people here disagree with, but she will actively shout at people who drive by with Trump stickers on their cars. There have been a few times when people have shouted at her, a few people have pulled over to argue with her, and if that happens, she doesn't try to de-escalate or anything, she will scream back at them. She has asked a few times if our kids can come with her. I said no because I was afraid someone could hurt or threaten them, and she agreed not to take them. But when I mentioned that it would be just as horrible for our kids if they lost their mom and unborn brother because someone hurts her, she brushes it off. No one has done anything physical yet, but there are some psychos out there, and it only takes one. She has also stopped going to therapy, stopped doing the workbooks her therapist gave her, and won't take her medication or get her prescription refilled. She says that she doesn't think there is anything wrong with her, there is something wrong with all the people out there who aren't protesting. I asked her if she doesn't want to get better and be able to be happy, and she says happiness isn't for her. Another thing is that this is affecting our relationships with our neighbors. We were already odd in this area. We are not white, and my wife is Muslim. We sometimes get looks, and I've felt like I've had to earn acceptance from the neighbors. People will almost never be directly rude to us, but if I say my wife is a Muslim, I can tell that what they hear is my wife is a terrorist. If I said my wife is a liberal Muslim, that wouldn't go over much better. I've just kind of had to pretend I don't notice the reactions and keep being friendly until they decide my family is normal. I also try to always find a way to casually mention that my late mother was white and grew up in this area. However, I can tell people are acting differently around me now. A few people avoid me, some have awkwardly said, "So I saw your wife the other day." I haven't been getting as much gig work, and worst of all, one of my son's best friends is no longer allowed to come over to our house. They outright told me, "He can come over here, but I don't want him to go to your house anymore." It felt like such a slap in the face, since I've babysat the kids so many times for free. Since SR et al. Broke the ceasefire, it's been at its worst. She has been out there every day for hours. I feel so heartbroken for my kids, who don't understand, and for my wife, who is her own worst enemy. I can't force her to get help, but I have no idea what else to do. She's at least been keeping up with her prenatal appointments, and she's promised me that when our son is born, she'll stop protesting, but I almost don't know if I believe her, because it almost seems like she's not capable of that. How do I handle this? /relevant comments. In response to someone suggesting the wife might have schizophrenia and asking if she seemed like she was having conversations with an invisible person. No, she's never done that. I know what you're talking about, I see homeless people do that a lot, and my wife never does it. The therapist explained it better than I could. But basically, people with schizophrenia who think they hear God are actually hearing a voice in their head. But my wife doesn't hear a voice. She has obsessive thoughts about bad things happening in the world and feels like she has to fix it. This started happening to her suddenly, and her own explanation for it was that it was a message from God, because she didn't know any other explanation. But she doesn't actually hear a voice saying, "My wife's name, I want you to go protest on the street." In response to people saying OP should be more supportive of the wife's protests. I'm not trying to be flippant. I didn't want to make my post too long, and I figured it should go without saying that obviously, what is happening in P at Lest? Ni is horrific. I know it triggers my wife because of things she experienced in her own childhood and things her family has experienced. I'm not saying she shouldn't protest at all, but I wish she wouldn't do it in such a dangerous way and risk her own safety and the safety of our unborn son. I want her to be able to be happy and go to therapy so she can find a healthy way to deal with her emotions. Her emotions are totally valid, but the way she's dealing with them doesn't help her. She is a good person, and I love her so much. I really hope it doesn't lead to violence, but even without violence, it's not a good road, and I'd be worried someone could hit her accidentally. There are almost no pedestrians there, and she doesn't just stay in one spot, she walks and crosses a lot of areas where cars are coming in and out, and there are no street lights. I also wish she would only hold a sign and not scream at people, because she might scream at the wrong person, someone who's crazy enough to attack her. Commenter. Commenters supporting the wife's protesting clearly do not understand intrusive thoughts and OCD. This woman needs help, serious psychological help, to understand that she cannot fix the world by doing enough good deeds. OCD is a messed up condition, and it's not helpful when people misconstrue her good deed doing as something positive, rather than a compulsive belief that she has to keep doing these things because if she stops, something even worse will happen. It's so sad that she stopped therapy and medication. Commenter 2. For those unfamiliar, this sounds like moral OCD. The wife has constant intrusive thoughts about how bad the world is and how she's a bad person because there's bad stuff happening. Compulsively protesting and going on intense aid contracts alleviate the anxiety somewhat, but never completely. Really unfortunate that she's unwilling to go back to treatment. It's a really tough one to convince people to get help for.